can be seated. So I have a few different ideas that I wanted us to dialogue about. I knew that there would be a more intimate crowd, and normally we would be in the chapel, except that there's the parents of junior congregation, they're all in there together. So it's the perfect spot for the parents to see what's going on in junior congregation. So we're a little more spread out, but I'm confident that you will let your opinion be known. So I've been thinking about what goes into prayer. Right, what are the components that we put into prayer? Because the prayer book is huge. It's filled with words. It's filled with words we're unfamiliar with because it's in Hebrew or some in Aramaic. It's unfamiliar to us because even some of the translations are a little more liberal, so it doesn't even match up one to one. And even if you read it in the English, it doesn't always speak to our heart. So let's just take the prayer for peace. What would you want in the prayer for peace? Give some ideas of what would you want. Yeah, Aaron.
To be heard.
Well, that's a good start, right? Well, no matter what the words are, we wish that we were heard and it was answered. That's, yes, absolutely, because it ain't working so far. Right, okay, great, thank you. Yeah, Khazan.
I would wish for more self-doubt amongst people that believe that they're right. I would wish for more humility amongst people that have zealous beliefs, whether it's about politics or religion or anything.
The Khazan says, I would wish for more humility, that people would have a little more doubt about their correctness. Yeah. Right. Yeah, Toby.
I think a prayer for peace needs to also include justice, because being calm and quiet while some people are still being oppressed is not really peace.
So Toby says that that there has to be a call to justice in peace, because your life may be peaceful, but the world is not. And so it's easy to feel comfortable, complacent with it, right? There's the famous phrase that the role of prayer, or the role of synagogues, or the role of a preacher, if you will, is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable, right? Which I think is great, right? Because when we are too comfortable, when we feel too at peace and grateful to be at peace, we forget that at any given point there's over 100 wars going on in the world. And even though it may not touch our shores, it is touching many people's lives. Yeah. And one last idea. Yeah, Fern. Courageous conversations, yeah, because it has to include courageous conversations, because that's on the path to peace. You can't get it without saying your truth, without speaking up to the powerful, and to move forward, and also listening to hard conversations as well. Okay, and Adam, way in the back. Uh-huh.
I'm very comfortable with the way prayer for peace is. I don't think I'd want to change this particular.
So Adam is just pointing out that of all the inaccessible prayers, I actually picked one to start the conversation on, the most accessible one. We do it in English, and it's ideas that are nice. So that's true. Well, so that with all of this in mind of what goes into a prayer, okay, I want us to point out other things that are going on, and all of these things are happening simultaneously in my brain, so I'm sorry for you. to open that window. But a lot is going on. So also this upcoming week is Veterans Day, right? And I always emphasize this. There is a profound difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Memorial Day is the day that the country recognizes those that have died in the service of protecting our country. Veterans Day is appreciation for all of those that have served. Toby actually works for the Veterans Administration. So Veterans Day is a day that is not to go buy refrigerators, right? Right? It's not just about sales and things like that. It is a day of it should be a day of true appreciation for our veterans, right? It started off with Armistice Day. It was the recognition of the end of World War I, right? Famously at the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month, right? November 11th, 1918. In 1938, it was changed to Veterans Day, and I think in the mid-50s, it was made a national holiday. So that is an overlay of what I've been thinking about. So always, if you see someone in uniform, they're not a veteran, but thank them for their service. And for those that have served, thank you for your service. I was looking over at Aaron, who's still in uniform, and over to James, who is a veteran, who was in uniform. Are there other veterans? I see Rabbi Fishman in the back as well. I'm sorry? Oh, there's John. I didn't see John, right? John in the Navy over there, and others as well throughout the congregation. I remember we always had Seymour, who would always offer a prayer at this time, and remember him fondly. So there is Veterans Day because our highest prayers for the country and appreciation. And then the third thing in my head is this week is also Kristallnacht, right? Which is sort of the misapplication of the military. Right? Kristallnacht was an organized effort that appeared to be just organic rising up of Germans against the Jewish community, none of which was organic or none of it was just happenstance. It's interesting, in 1938, in the same year that Armistice Day became Veterans Day, that is the year of Kristallnacht, though on a different continent. So throughout 1938, of course, the Nazi regime carried out increasingly restrictive, violent anti-Jewish measures, and their goal was to drive Jews out of Nazi Germany. At this point, it was just to make it so inhospitable that they would willingly leave the country. And in this context, the Nazi targeted Jews with Polish citizenship and also with Polish passports living in Germany and in the area. So at the end of October of 1938, German authorities rounded up and deported about 17,000 Jewish people who were of Polish descent or Polish passports, even if they had been born in Germany. And this is called the Polis Action. I won't even try to do the German. And it was the first mass deportation of Jews from Nazi Germany, just before Kristallnacht. And among those whom the Nazis deported was the Greenspan family, Rindel and Rivka Greenspan, who had immigrated to Germany in 1911. They were deported from Hanover into Poland, but Poland didn't want to accept any of these 17,000 people, and so they lived in these shanty camps that were set up for a few weeks. It was their two children. They had a 17-year-old son, Herschel, who was living in Paris at the time. After word got to him in Paris about these conditions and what had been happening to his family, Herschel went to the German embassy in Paris the morning of November 7, and he shot a German diplomat, Ernst von Rath. He died a few days later. And obviously Greenspan was so upset that he was moved to this political violence. Well, the Nazi regime chose to use the shooting as an excuse to launch this all-out assault on the anti-Jewish riots. Now, von Rath died coincidentally on the anniversary of the 1923 beer hall push, an important date on the Nazi calendar, that all of the Nazi leaders had been assembled in Munich to commemorate this earlier day. It was been about 15 years since Hitler attempted a coup in 23. The story is that Hitler and about 600 Nazi followers marched into town, surrounded a building where a meeting was taking place. Hitler walked into a speech by the president of Bavaria. He pulled out a gun, shot at the ceiling, and proclaimed that Hitler was the new leader, that the Bavarian president had been overthrown, and that the national revolution had begun. And the following day, about 2,000 Nazi followers marched into the city. There was a conflict between the local police and these Nazis. About 15 Nazis were killed, 4 police officers and 1 bystander. Hitler escaped. This is in 23. Hitler escaped, and he was arrested 2 days later and charged with treason. This is in 1923. 15 years later, 1938, this is why all of the Nazi leaders were together at that point. They heard about the assassination in Paris, and they decided this is our opportunity. This is what we're going to do. Goebbels made a speech saying that this is the time for us to rise up, and Kristallnacht happens. 1,400 synagogues were burned during Kristallnacht. Approximately 30,000 Jewish men were forcibly rounded up and sent to concentration camps, marking the first instance of mass arrests of Jews solely for being Jewish. It was only 17,000 before that were pushed out to Poland, so 30,000 now. And in the aftermath of Kristallnacht, the Nazi regime imposed a fine, an atonement tax on the Jewish community because of all of this destruction that the Jewish community had caused, right? Of 1 billion Reichsmarks, which was about $40 million US of that at that time. So in 1938, I think I said 40. I meant $400 million US in 1938 money, right? Like an impossibly large. So all these things are going on, and we say these prayers that are so familiar to us, and I don't know they capture any of these moments. Right? The prayer for peace, the prayer for country, the prayer for Israel, I don't know if they capture what I am holding in my heart. That's why I'm asking this now. So for our prayer for country, recognizing how Germany turned on itself, and recognizing the turmoil that we are in the midst of now. I want to be clear. While some are very quick to say America is Germany of late 1930s, I'm not suggesting that, though I am aware of echoes, right? But I do not think it's the same. I don't think history repeats itself. I think that it echoes. And so therefore we have to hear it and be cautious about it. But we're at a different time. So let me ask a different question. What would the prayer for country hold for us now? What do you want to see in the prayer for country? I asked a group, I've been having lunch on Fridays during the furlough and the shutdown, about what they would ask, what they would want in the prayer for country. And I wrote a prayer based on that conversation. But what else? But I want to close with that. What do you want in the prayer for country that we need right now? A reasonable path to citizenship, right? Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Murray. A country that cares for our weakest citizens. Yeah, Jordan.
More of a personal call to action. I noticed that the prayer for peace has one, I will. I don't notice that in the prayer for country, maybe more of what I am going to do, what you are going to do.
What I'm going to do, to see more, a little less of the we generally and more like taking personal responsibility for this. Great. Yeah, Sarah. Requiring our leaders to follow the law. It would seem that wouldn't be too much to ask. And yet, necessary. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Sue, and then Carol.
I go a little bit different. I would give thanks for a country that lets us be free to vote, to express our views, to express our religion. I would give thanks for that.
To give gratitude for being in a country that allows us to vote, allows us to express our views, right? Absolutely. Especially when those seem in question in that same country. Yeah. Carol. Honesty. Yeah, but just basic honesty. Right. So let me read what we came up with. They aren't, don't hold them accountable for my writing, but I just jotted notes down from the conversation we had, and I put this together. So a draft for the prayer for country. And I would love to hear feedback at Kiddush about what you would add and tweak on this. So, source of justice, bless this nation and all who dwell within it. Guide each of us and our leaders towards honesty in speech and integrity in our deeds. Grant us wisdom to seek truth in a time of complexity. Help us embrace humility so we can investigate the world with curiosity and awe. Open our hearts to welcome the stranger, remembering that we were once strangers. Strengthen our courage and awaken our conscience so we stand firm against hatred, prejudice, and indifference. Inspire us to fulfill the most essential obligation of citizenship, to raise our voices and cast our votes with thoughtfulness and care. Stir within us compassion to feed the hungry, lift the poor, uphold the rights and dignity of the underprivileged and disenfranchised. May our leaders and public servants embody the vision of this nation's founders to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our children. And spread over us the shelter of peace as we ask for your protection over those who defend our land. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom.